Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today I am going to discuss a small upgrade I made to my rig, um, which was the monitor. Previously I had been using a ViewSonic 27-inch 1080p monitor. It did have a solid refresh rate at 140, but I had been wanting to get a larger monitor, a 32-inch. I had also recently upgraded my PC, so I was looking to try to get a higher resolution, bump it up to 1440p, um, and a higher refresh rate if possible. If you watch my streams, you would know I mostly drive in VR, so I also was not wanting to break the bank on a monitor. I do use it for some other gaming and just some other work on the computer, but it's mostly set up for sim racing. And as I don't use the monitor a whole lot for that, I wanted, I just didn't want to break the bank on it. So what I landed on, as you can see on the screen, is the Gigabyte G32QC. This did fall in the budget range I was looking for. Right now on Amazon in the US, it's listed for $350. So it is in that lower end. Before moving further, I just want to make clear this is my impressions of the monitor. I don't want to list this as a complete review because I don't have the equipment or the know how to measure, color reproduction, contrast ratios, uh, input latency and all that kind of stuff. So this is more my impressions in just using the monitor, and whether or not I enjoy using the monitor. Not going to get into the nitty gritty of all the other numbers because I can't do that. All I can say is, my experience using it. So before we move forward, let's just go over some of the specs real quick. Like I said, $350 US currently on Amazon. So it is in that that budget range for a gaming monitor. It is a 32-inch 1440p monitor at 165 hertz. And then beyond that, some of the other things, if we take a look through their website here, you can see it's FreeSync Premium Pro. It is supposed to be GSync compatible, which it is, but more on that in a minute. Uh, it is VESA certified display HDR. However, it's HDR 400, which from all my reading is like barely being registered as HDR, so don't expect great HDR images or anything from it. Other than that, it's 1 millisecond response time, like I said, 165 hertz. OSD Sidekick, which again, more of that in a minute. It's got some other features like game assist, crosshair, and stuff. I don't use any of that, so I'm not going to touch on any of that. Um, but yeah, that's most of it. Oh, actually, I will mention it is a curved monitor, 1500R curve. So again, I'll touch on that in a minute, but that's personal preference if you like curved monitors or not. It's not a huge curve, um, but it's there. As you can see, it does come with a stand. Is adjustable up and down and tilting. It won't rotate though. It does have USB hub built into it, so you've got two extra USB 3 ports on the back. It can be HDMI or DisplayPort. Um, and that's mostly everything. I mean, you can get into the contrast ratio, 3000 to 1, brightness 350, and on. Oh, Actually, one other thing to mention, VESA, it is VESA mountable, 100 by 100. That was another thing I had to have when shopping for a monitor. If you are setting this up to a rig, it's something you're going to want to have as well. I've got the SimLab GT1 Evo with the monitor mount, so I needed a monitor that could mount to the rig. I had looked at some other options that are in the budget range, and they weren't VESA compatible, so they were ruled out right away. But otherwise, that's pretty much all the specs. So I will turn the camera around so you can see the monitor itself, and I will give you my impressions on it. Alright, so you can see now I've got the monitor set up in front of me here. Just to take a quick look around, I mean, not much to show, but I will say upon arrival, it was well packaged, no damage at all. I've now been using a couple months, 0 dead pixels, everything working just as it should. And so far so good from that standpoint. As you might have seen as we're scrolling through their site earlier, it is pretty plain looking. Even the pictures on the site with the lighting make it look a lot more dramatic than it does in reality. For me personally, not a big deal. I don't care to have stuff that's, RGB and crazy angles and colors and everything like that. I'm fine with a plain looking monitor, so no issues with that. Like I said, it is curved. You can't really notice that much in the video, but it is curved. For me personally, curved, especially a small curve like this, whether it's flat or a curve like this, doesn't I just don't find a difference either way. It's fine with me, but that's personal preference. Couple things to touch on that I don't necessarily like, or issues I do have with it. One, this is a little nitpicky, but the controls for the monitor itself are a button around the back, the lower right corner. It's like a little kind of an analog switch, like on a controller, like a gamepad or something. You push it to bring up the menu down here in the bottom. So the power it off, it's not a matter of just pushing the button. You push the button, this comes up, then you got push down on the D-pad. And if you want to change settings, you push up. It brings up the settings menu here, and you can scroll through the various things, gaming options, picture options, display, different stuff there. Then you push to the left to turn it off. So one, I would prefer just, some buttons down at the bottom, where you don't gotta reach all the way around the screen. I just don't find it's all that that comfortable to do. That said, and also I'd like a one push button to turn off the screen rather than having to push a button and then use the D-pad to turn it off. In terms of adjusting the settings, though, if you don't want to use that, they do have their OSD Sidekick app, which is a nice inclusion here. So if you don't want to use that, you can install this app on your computer, and I can come in and start changing all the settings in here, just through the PC itself. You got brightness, contrast. You got all the stuff you kind of come to expect. So that does make it a bit better, but I would have preferred just some controls along the bottom edge of the screen. One other thing that I'm that I've had a bit of a problem with is the G-Sync compatibility. So it is compatible. Just make this a bit bigger so you can hopefully see it. It does show up. You can enable G-Sync on it. It does work. Um, in a, I'm a little torn. In game, perfectly fine, no issues. On my past monitor, I just had this enabled at all times. Now I find if I'm out of game, I do have to disable it. At first, I noticed it during loading screens, loading up iRacing and almost any game. I would notice a little flicker on the screen while it was loading. Um, but then again, in game, I never noticed any flicker. It seemed to work just fine. But then using some video editing software and photo editing software, while I was doing that, I was noticing some flickers again. I tried different DisplayPort cables to see if it was the cable that was causing the problem. Didn't fix it. In the end, after a bunch of Googling, I found out turn off G-Sync and the problem went away completely. So now I turn off G-Sync when not gaming, when I'm doing other stuff, and then turn it back on if I'm going into a game. Because if it's flickering during the loading screen, I don't care. And in game, it works fine. So that's a little bit of a downside. My previous monitor was G-Sync compatible as well, and I just never had those issues. I just had it enabled at all times. There was never any flickering, nothing like that. So that's a bit of a disappointment there. Beyond that, though, I gotta say I don't really have any other issues with this monitor. Um, at first, I thought there was maybe some issues. Like I tried playing Control, the game there. I found it like really fuzzy looking. A couple other instances in games, I found stuff kind of fuzzy looking, and I was a little disappointed by that. But then trying out more and more stuff, other stuff looks perfectly fine. So to me, I've kind of come to the conclusion it's something with those games and apps in particular, whether it's their AA or something else. I'm not sure what's causing it. But it doesn't seem to be a monitor issue because if I jump into iRacing, there's no fuzziness. It looks perfectly fine. So I've concluded those are more to do with the game than the monitor itself. Other than that, no issues. Like I've said, it's worked absolutely perfect. I've now had it for 2 or 3 months. Zero issues, no dead pixels. 165 frames, runs perfectly fine, no issues. Um, the picture looks great. The 1440p looks great. Colors and everything, to me, I'm no expert on this, but looking at it on the screen seems awesome. There's no noticeable latency to me. Granted, just through the years of experience, I feel like I'm not overly sensitive to that, and others are more sensitive. Um, so it's potentially there, but I don't know. Like if I'm racing, there's never been a point where, or even any other game for that matter, where I felt there was some sort of latency. Um, there, I've just never noticed anything. So again, like I said, I don't have the tools or the knowledge to measure it exactly, but in using the monitor, I just don't notice it. Um, and same with the colors and contrast. I can't measure it. I do have my previous VSonic beside me. I know when I kind of I'm using that as a second screen, so if I move things back and forth, the picture definitely looks much better. Colors and everything look way better on this Gigabyte than it did on my previous VSonic. Again, I can't give you exact numbers, but to me, just it looks much better than my previous ViewSonic did. So very happy with that. And all in all, in the end, very happy and would recommend this monitor to anyone looking, especially if you're looking at that budget range. It's a great monitor. If you're like I said earlier, it's fairly plain aesthetically speaking and stuff. If you've got a setup where you're all RGB and everything else, you might want to look at some other options. But if you're like me and don't really care about that stuff, um, this one fits the bill. It'll fit any rig you have, any mounting system with its VESA 100 by 100. So in the end, for sure, I highly recommend this one. And I hope you find this helpful if you are in the market for a monitor. And if you do have it, please let me know below in the comments your impressions of it, any settings or anything you in particular use. I haven't touched much, just based on some stuff online. I've adjusted the colors slightly, very slightly, but that's pretty much the only thing in the settings I've changed. But yeah, I hope you find this useful, and I will see you all on the next video.